am Mark Williams, and I have a hearing standard for the DNRC. I'm going to let everyone know we're going to record this meeting so that we can go back through these comments and address them adequately. So I'm going to begin recording now, and I just wanted to let everybody know before I turn it on the record. Okay. I better turn on the power first. So I am Mark Baluchis. I'm a hearing examiner for DNRC, which means I conduct the hearing in this matter. And this hearing is to gather public testimony on the proposed expansion of the M.Welles DSL Gravel Pit, located in Section 17 of Township 5 South, Range 1 West. I've been designated to preside over and conduct the hearing, and I'm recording the hearing so the department has accurate record of your comments. At this hearing, any interested person may submit data, views, or arguments orally or in writing. Written testimony carries the same weight as oral testimony. You may submit written comments in the box located on the table right there, over in the corner there. And there's also a sign-up sheet. So you can also, there's an address there that if you wanted to send comments by tomorrow, I would submit it if I can, or you can submit it by email, that's fine as well. And my email address is mbaluchis@mt.gov, and I'll write it down over there. Written comments must be received no later than 5 p.m. tomorrow, January 2023. So we're going to do this by having people approach the microphone. The reason for that is there's an actual microphone that will help spoken allow everyone to hear, and there's a microphone for the recorder as well. And so I'll have you individually approach the lectern and give your comments there. We're expecting a lot of comments. We want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to limit comments to 2 minutes. And I will be the one, I will let you know what to do. And at the beginning of your testimony, just identify yourself for the record by stating your name, your home city and state, and who you represent, whether it be an organization or yourself. And as I said, when you are done, please write your information on the sign-up sheet. Your testimony should include your complete statement. I know that might be difficult in 2 minutes, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. There will be no rebuttal or additional statements given by any witness unless I request. We will hear comments from the physical audience first, which will then be followed by comments from the virtual audience. There is a Zoom meeting as well. The virtual audience may submit comments by email at any time, and written comments will be evaluated the same as oral comments. So sitting at this table, as I said, I'm Mark Baluchis. We have Trevor Taylor, who's the Minerals Management Bureau Chief for DNRC, Trust Lands Division, and Zach Winfield, who is a petroleum engineer, and then Kathy Wandersee, who is the Communications Director for DNRC. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take a seat, and I believe Zach is going to give a little talk about the project itself. And then when he's done, I'll invite the first commenter to come forward. There's no particular order in which you will come forward. Whatever works. We'll start there.
Thanks, Mark. Should this work? So when you guys do come up, sign in order on the sheet here on the metal table here.
Oh, excuse me, I thought it was over there. I thought.
No, that's all right. So please sign in order so we know the comment. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for a public hearing on the proposed expansion of the M.Welles DSL Gravel Pit, as Mark said. My name is Zach Winfield. I'm an engineer with the Department of Natural Resources Trust Land Management Division. Before we start the hearing, I would like to give a brief summary of the project we are taking comments on and offer some clarifying points. The DSL Gravel Pit is located 2.3 miles north of Ennis and has been permitted with the DNRC, previously the Department of State Lands, for over 40 years. M.Welles' proposed expansion includes a reclamation plan that would incorporate the site with the surrounding native environment. The day-to-day operations of this pit would remain consistent with current operation. The difference between what is currently authorized and what is proposed is the addition of 23.2 acres of undisturbed ground to the permit area. You can see that undisturbed ground in a map that we have on the back table there. A majority of this 23.2 acres would not be mined, but rather used for topsoil storage and reclamation purposes. The proposed expansion would allow the operator to finish mining the gravel resource, then begin to properly reclaim the mine area. The berm along the eastern boundary of the pit would remain in place during mining operation. It conceals the mine and contains potential runoff from leaving the pit into the valley below. Once mining has concluded and final reclamation is set to occur, the berm would be mined and removed. This would be done to incorporate the existing disturbance of the natural topography surrounding the mine area. The proposed action does not include authorization for the proponent to utilize an asphalt plant. Per the stipulations of the DNRC permit, M.Welles must request permission to operate an asphalt plant on a case-by-case basis. Any request for an asphalt plant will be analyzed and evaluated in accordance with Montana Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. So, thank you again for joining us tonight at this public hearing. The rules of this hearing have been outlined by Martin. If you have a specific question you would like answered, Trevor and my phone and email are open to you guys at any time. And our contact information is posted on the table over here. I believe we have one here on the back table. You can find it online as well. So with that, let's get started. And anybody who'd like to comment orally can start lining up. Thank you.
Just one question. Is the virtual?
There is virtual attendees content, and we'll address their comments after everybody is here. Guys, in the back, there's some chairs up here if you want to sit as well, or stand, whatever you'd like to do. Should be on.
Hey guys, thanks for being here. I'm Darcy Taylor. I do work for the Forest Service. I am here representing myself as a Ennis resident. And I have a concern. As a Forest Service employee, I'm pretty familiar with NEPA, which is pretty close to NEPA. I should say that I am not necessarily opposed to the plant. What I am opposed to is putting in the plant without the appropriate NEPA being done. As your own environmental assessment states, there are 9 sensitive species involved in this, including the grizzly bears, which is a big deal. Arctic grayling are another one, right? People come here from all over the world to fish for Arctic grayling. That's a big deal. Your own environmental assessment says that pollutants will be produced, vegetative communities will be impacted, water and drinking water could be impacted, as well as federally listed threatened and endangered species. So I just think that that deserves due diligence, right? It's our job as conservators of the land to make sure that we're not making an impact that our children can't recover from. And with that, I'd just like to say that M.Welles, great company, get gas and all the time, but they're not going to go bankrupt if we put brakes on this and do the right thing. And with that, I'll close. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Suzanne McGee. My family and I have owned the land in the valley for almost 25 years. I'm the current steward of the Valley Garden Ranch. We are not newcomers to the valley. The Valley Garden Ranch has been a good neighbor and strong member of this community since the ranch was founded in the early 1900s. In addition to running a ranching operation in the Madison Valley, we are proud sponsors of the local charities, and we have a sincere interest in preserving what makes this community special. The Valley Garden Ranch is under strict conservation easement. This means that no development will ever happen on the Valley Garden, and the pristine views of the Madison River Valley will be enjoyed by all for generations to come. We are deeply concerned about the expansion of the gravel mine. We ask the DNRC to seriously consider the long-term impact of expanding the mine. Among other things, we implore you, please keep the eastern geomorphic barrier or bench adjacent to the mine, thus protecting water quality, preserving the views from Ennis Lake to town. The residents and visitors to the valley do not want to see a gaping hole or pit in the valley landscape. Enforce your existing permit with the operator, embrace the conservation aspect of your name, and please address the inaccuracies and misrepresentations of environmental assessment. The Madison Valley and the town of Ennis are still an authentic corner of the American West. Let's keep it that way. Thank you very much.
I want to first thank the members of the DNRC for allowing us to have a chance to express our concern. My name is Barbara Gillespie. I live approximately 1.25 miles downwind, which would be north from this proposed expansion. The thing that I guess worries me the most is that in looking through the assessment, there's mentions of, well, maybe more dirt will be in the air. Well, maybe there'll be some degradation of the water. But I think the answer comes down to why this is happening is on page 10. And why this is happening, I think, is the $562,000 that's procured over the lifetime over 19 years through 2042. I have to tell you, in my first life, I was a math teacher. That's less than $30,000 a year. It is worth the treasure that we have, Madison River, to experiment with what could happen with our crown jewel, the Madison River, for less than $30,000 a year. I think that's too cheap a price to sell out, to take a gamble on this valuable resource. Thank you.
And you can certainly sign up, for those who are sort of waiting in line, you can certainly sign up afterwards if you'd like. Just as long as we're in order.
Hello, my name is Joe Dillsnyder. Thank you all for the opportunity to comment. I find it concerning the process, as I understand it, that's happened here, that permit for this type of activity was issued prior to a full environmental assessment being approved and finalized and some public scoping. So I'm not sure if that's a standard operating procedure for activities like this, but I would hope not. In my view, nothing is more important in our valley than our clean air, clean water, fish, and wildlife. So I would urge you to do a full assessment, and as Darcy said, really complete the due diligence before authorizing any activities that might impair those resources that make this place spectacular. And that does include our scenic and natural beauty. So I would also express my concern over removing the east bench and the visual impact of that, not to mention the potential water seeping or leaching down into Morse Creek, the Madison River, and Ennis Lake. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to come.
Make sure you sign up for that.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. For the record, my name is Dave Donahue. I'm a senior hydrogeologist with Hydro Solutions in Helena. I've been retained by Valley Gardens Land and Cattle to review the thoroughness of the water resource and the environmental information presented in the open cup application to the EA. Tonight, I just want to talk about reclamation plan and the impacts of water. In the reclamation, regarding the current reclamation plan presented in the EA, a burn on the eastern edge of the pit area will remain unmined until the final phases of the project, in order to mitigate effects from large rain events on the ephemeral drainage. However, once the burn is removed as part of the final reclamation, drainage will be susceptible to impacts now from future large rain events. Overland flow downslope from the mined area will transport sediment into the drainage. In operational site-specific and effective reclamation is necessary. Regarding the water, the DNRC EA relied on information presented in the M.Welles application dated March 3rd, 2022, which does not provide sufficient information on how shallow groundwater resources used by the seasonal water right holders will be protected. Seasonal high and seasonal low depth of groundwater measurements used by DNRC and the EA to evaluate the water table levels are inaccurately presented, and the analysis needs to be corrected. Valley Gardens recently installed a new shallow groundwater well just north of the gravel pit boundary. The water table levels collected today demonstrate that shallow seasonal low groundwater levels are 41 feet below ground surface and are significantly different than the 70-foot data presented in the EA. An open cut operation cannot be permitted due to incorrect and inaccurate data. In addition, it is incorrect to consider that the deep wells installed by the Bureau of Mines at the south end were used to support the groundwater calculations in the application. They do not represent shallow groundwater, but represent deep aquifers. On page 3, the DNRC inaccurately stated that the proponent plans to use the water from the 2 MBMG wells in their operations. However, the MBMG, those are monitoring wells, and they're not aware of any use or request to be used in those wells.
I'm going to have to cut you off. If you would submit the rest of your comment in writing.
The EA states that the application shall obtain the proper water rate.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. For the record, my name is Shane Bopto. I'm a senior environmental engineer with Hydro Solutions in Billings, Montana. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in chemical engineering and an MBA. I have been retained by Valley Gardens Land and Cattle LLC to review air quality resources information presented in the CA. I urge the DNRC to look at the quantification of dust and implementation of best management practices for mitigation to assess primary impacts of dust and its opacity, secondary impacts to wetlands and wildlife, and cumulative impacts to the valley in conjunction with other natural and anthropogenic dust sources. Activities related to the proposed action create fugitive dust, compose of particulate matter from point sources such as mineral processing and non-point sources such as unapproved road travel and wind erosion of disturbed areas and stockpiles. In the application, the proposed action indicated a temporary increase in fugitive dust that would be negligible. However, there were no estimates of the quantity of dust. Acceptable methods for estimating dust and its dispersion for the mining activities are available through the EPA. No best management practices were presented to mitigate the dust generation, nor high wind contingency plan reference. These mitigations are readily available and proven effective. The prevailing wind direction was indicated in the application. Wind can vary direction throughout the day, and wind velocities can be independent of wind direction. At various times, wind can be directed towards the residences and other sensitive areas. 30-foot tall high wall is referenced as a dust barrier to the north, but in actuality, this can be a source of fugitive dust. As wind climbs and compresses over the wall, wind velocity increases. The higher velocity wind blows over stockpiles located on top of the wall, resulting in increased dust generation, increased dust generation. Thank you.
Hello, thanks for being here. I'm the head guide at M.Welles Fishing Lodge, just upstream of Barnes Bridge. I'm here tonight representing my 40+ coworkers who I work with during the season. As a fishing guide, as a fishing lodge, we depend on and care deeply for the integrity of the valley's ecosystem to provide our guests an incredible experience. We believe the expansion of the DSL mine would directly impact our livelihood in the Madison Valley's flora and fauna in a negative way. We understand the need for gravel pit, but are deeply concerned with the expansion location and are opposed to the air, noise, visual, and water pollution the expansion of the DSL mine causes. To conclude, myself and my coworkers asked the DNRC to reconsider this expansion permit, as it would negatively impact our livelihood in the valley. Thank you.
Would you mind stating your name? I think you missed that in the beginning.
Will Griffith,
Will Griffith, and what was the name of the lodge?
Madison Noble.
Thank you. You bet. We'll try that. There we go. Is that better?
There we go. My name is Roger Hett, and I've recently moved to Valley Garden. And one of the main reasons that my wife and I and our family moved here, because the area is astoundingly beautiful. You know, the wildlife, fish, the whole terrain. So I'm also kind of a tourist as well as a local. And my biggest concern is how the expansion of this mine can affect your whole tourism industry. Fishermen and things, they don't want to be walking, you know, floating down the river and looking at an open quarry. I think the wall is especially important to be preserved. On top of all the environmental protection. Thank you.
Sure.
Hello, everybody. My name is Randy Brown. How about now? My name is Randy Brown, outfitter, fishing guide for 44 years in the valley. I know what you think, here it comes. Another beer swigging, pot smoking, money grubbing, river racketeer, telling you all how to live your life. That's not going to happen. We're here to talk about gravel. We're here to talk about the extension of the gravel pit. I feel that part that bothers me is this reaching of the dike. Part that bothers me is knocking that bench down, digging a hole in that bench, gouging up that bench. That bothers me. I'm glad to hear that the asphalt part is gone. Asphalt's nasty stuff. Asphalt's got like two in a minute. The reason I know that because I looked at it. I got smart all of a sudden. It took me a while. That bitumen goes down the rock, goes into Moore's Creek, goes down Moore's Creek, goes into Ennis Lake, and all of a sudden all the fish in Ennis Lake are from the Wachusett. It's not good. The DSL pit is surrounded by the Valley Garden Ranch. Valley Garden Ranch is the prettiest ranches in the valley. People that own and operate the Valley Garden Ranch are fine, decent people. They take care of the land and good stewards of it. They got one of the best conservation easements anywhere on that thing. Also, Kevin and M.Welles people, they've been here forever. These guys are pros, they know what they're doing. I have all the confidence to get on those guys, they're doing the right thing. That part's good. What I think is, we should all be on the lookout all we go for this valley, there's a lot of environmental shenanigans going on. And up to us to keep an eye on all this stuff, make sure that, people are called out to do something funky out here. So in closing, I think we all share this valley, I think we're in it together, and I hope we can all do this together, not take sides. The last thing I have to say is, all walk the earth. Thank you.
I don't know who to talk to. I think I'm here to convince these guys, but you all should see my face too. My name is Burley Leonard. I came to Ennis. My family and I have come here every year for the last 20 years, for parts of the summer. My wife and I moved here in 2018. We live here year-round, winters and summer. And we came here because of the beauty of this place, the environmental quality of this place. And I can't stand by to see that compromise. I can't stand by to see the risk of that being compromised. So I'm against the expansion of the gravel pit. I'm against an asphalt plant, even though it may not be under consideration now, it'll be in consideration in the future. So I want that clear. I respect the processes that the state agencies have to go through. I'm a believer in process. My last comment is, let's, as a community, protect the resource that not only provides inequality, but is the engine that drives the economy of this valley. You kill the golden goose, there'll be no golden eggs. Keep that in mind. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
I also have stated that I'd like to include the record.
Right over there, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Levi Chandler. I help take care and manage the Valley Garden Ranch, and what an awesome place it is. What an awesome valley to be able to visit, and a wonderful community to be involved with. I mean, look around. Look at how many people are here to support this valley and what we live with. So I'm here just to learn and to listen to the comments that are here. I appreciate everybody that stood up and spoke today. So I just want everybody to be able to do their due diligence and do what's right. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth McKnight. I live in the Calvin store on Jordan Lane. I'm very nervous. I have so many friends in here and people who are new to this, so living here, but my partner has a camera, especially in it's like 20-something years ago, and he has come back. So we're very committed. We have a family. We have 2 kids in the high school here, and I feel for Barbara. Barbara and I know very well those five guys coming into our neighborhood, and the stuff 60 miles an hour. I didn't see anything in any of the materials that showed any kind of customary review or impact study on what that means for us. Those are things that I've seen when I've done research on other quarry developments, and that's a very customary thing to do. But aside from that concerns with the gravel estuary that I do know the McGee's have worked on and tried to reclaim, I have to say to the state of Montana, why is it that the state of Montana, and that land is the state of Montana, which represents everyone in this room, you guys aren't doing anything to preserve the valley the way that these ranch landowners are the reason the valley exists. They're individual families who have taken their resources and they
donated to the rest of us. But the state that we belong to doing nothing, and you're just for $30,000 a year, is appalling. Thank you.
Sign in, please.
This on, yes it is. My name is Jeff Maslow. I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. I'd also like to thank everybody who stated so well this issue. I'm here representing myself, and I just have a few comments. One is I question the process that you use to get to where you are today. I'm very uncomfortable to question this project because I don't think it was properly used. I also question the economics of it. We talk about economic activity. This is generated. I don't think there's been any consideration to the potential impact to economic activity that is so important to this valley. Growing recreation, culture, fish and wildlife. I don't think the economics make sense. They question whether there isn't a better alternative. They all recognize that it seems like a very bad place. It seems like a very bad idea to pull down that hillside. I think from an environmental perspective, the impacts of that are known. That's a sensitive area immediately adjacent to where this project is, connected to the Madison River, connected to wetlands, connected to this lake. So I'm opposed to the project as it exists today. I also frankly don't buy or believe this asphalt plant that is in the plan, is in the plan. I think alternatives should be considered. I think this project should be abandoned. I say that with all due respect to the M.Welles and the people who work there. But in our current economy, I don't think one can view this project as a economic need. So with that, I'll just say I'm opposed to the project. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dustin Brody, I live in McKellis. I have three things that have bothered me with this project. Number one is the eastern boundary. Right now, there's a nice buffer between any of the water flowing and what we have proposed. The proposed doesn't have any boundary that keeps runoff going into the stream, which goes into Ennis Lake. The other thing that bothers me is when they're crushing in the pit now, all that dust comes all the way up from Dallas. So with the expansion of this, in fact, would increase the dust coming up our land. And the third thing is on the asphalt. I'm not sure if they're talking about permanent asphalt plant or if they're going to bring in a portable one for a very short run. That's never discussed in the main meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. The one that I'm here speaking just as a citizen, and for my husband too. He lives about too. We're your family. We really care about this area. We chose it to retire to because of the clean water. We, like all the other folks around our area, are on wells. We have a concern that expanding and without really due diligence, our water could be impacted. I have no doubt that the streets going into Ennis and the stuff that are Madison River, which we count on for our economic structure, which has other forms of that. And so we do not want to see the expansion. We compliment the folks who run it, who are giving it their best shot. But also, if you will read all the papers that have come through, they say grass. When something says grass, watch out. Because truly, you don't know what they're going to change. We are very concerned about the idea of the asphalt plant, because if it comes roaring in here, we are going to be huge trouble. So, thank you for giving me.
Would you state your name again? I'm not sure you stated your name, or I couldn't.
Lori Milford.
Okay, thank you.
My husband, too. Sorry, I shouldn't have. But anyway, I'm so happy to see so many of us here together to take this thing. This 20 minutes.
Hi, my name is Greg Stairs, and this is all year round. I didn't expect to say anything here tonight. I'm just here in support of those, all of us who are in opposition to this project. I'm just real curious. Ennis has a population of what, 900 people? I don't know how many people are here, 120 maybe. I'm just curious. I just see a show of hands. Anybody here who is in support of this project? So there may be 20, 25 hands raised. I haven't heard anybody speak about that, but I suppose the balance of us are voting. I was just curious to see who won. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrick McGee, Valley Garden Ranch. The ranch is mine. Founded in the early 1900s, Valley Garden Ranch historically leased this quarter section of state land for basic purposes. Over time, time, the state has subleased this land to the current mine operator without a fulsome discussion with the incumbent lessee, the Valley Garden, or the community at large. As documented in our written comments, DNRC's EA is woefully inadequate and fails to address basic and fundamental questions about this. If allowed to move forward, Wells will lease 63 acres adjacent to the Madison River system, process third-party material without a water permit and in non-compliance with the current DNRC permit. This is not a high and dry mine, but a mine in an incredibly sensitive ecological area that drains into Ennis Lake and the Madison River. Madison County has 26 other mines, but none so close to the Madison River, the most important asset in our county in southwest Montana. As contemplated, when the eastern berm of this mine is eliminated, the stars of this mine will be exposed forever along the Madison River and its valley. This berm also serves to protect any sludge and pollutant runoff into the Madison River ecosystem. By blindly following the DEQ, which has previously approved a 20-year expansion permit for the mine, including an asphalt plant, the DNRC is abrogating its responsibility to protect the environment at significant consequence to the minimal funding of the school trust. The DNRC must take a hard look at whether the income generated from this lease is worth potential harm to state trust lands and other resources. So, what is the DNRC legacy in our valley? The DNRC should incorporate the desires of this community and its duty under law and develop a win-win solution by modifying the license to prevent the destruction of the eastern berm, eliminate non-permitted processing of third-party material, and shorten the life of the mine. We ask the DNRC to address these shortfalls and embrace a solution that works for all. This should be the DNRC's legacy in our life. Thank you.
We don't want to fight for the lesson.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Church. I'm a resident of Ennis. I was born and raised on the ranch. My family found a ranch in Presided, and I bought a ton of it. I still live in Ennis with my family. I'm a business owner and employ over a dozen employees in town and concerned about it. I feel like at this point right now, we have more questions than answers. And so I think that if the state is going to, go through with this permit, that some of these questions, such as, the environmental impact survey and the impact to the water, burn and I feel like not only that, but nobody has really brought up the issue of like either. When I was growing up, there was arrowheads everywhere and down there at Green. There's a grave right up the hill. And so, at NEPA, right, also NAGPRA, all of these federal and state laws that it appears have not fully been in the due diligence. So I would like to answer some of those questions in terms of the full archaeological impact survey as well as the environmental survey. I would also want to know if the current permit if the restrictions are being followed. There's so much silica that blows in the air, down wind, and, I'm curious how they think on the dust. Do they have a water permit? Are they processing their materials? These are all questions that are really. I feel like also the noise and the visual impact of the ground coming down and some impact of tourism, fishing economy. That river and the fishing economy is the lifeblood of the valley, and I can't run a business without it. So, I also am concerned about the apple. And I can keep my mind. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie Burchett, and I'm a North resident, and I just wanted to voice my support for the expansion of the pit. It's been a well-maintained pit. I haven't heard any complaints before, but now that it's going to be expanded, bigger issue. I am not an engineer. But I do believe the job of the DNRC is to check those things, checks and balances, and make sure that things are done correct. And if they are permitting it, I believe that they are looking at all the interests. I mean, I worry for our neighbors and our friends in the valley because there are many small businesses that depend on the products that comes out of that pit. And also it helps support the school. How many kids go to school that they could do, like our school, I send my kids to Harrison, and it would be amazing how that can support them on their support. Because that's our future too. I'm not saying that I'm against fish. Obviously, nobody wants fish to die. Nobody wants to have a major economic or environmental impact. But I believe that the DNRC does their due diligence and they do try to check all that and make the best decision. So I just wanted to voice my support. Thank you.
My name is Dino Finelli. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. I appreciate it. I don't have a lot of faith in the government, but I believe you do, basically you're doing the job. And that's all we can count on, is that you guys are doing your job. What I ask is that I'd like to see the track record of people that have been operating this. I don't see any bad things coming out of this pit. I think they've done a great job. I think they've employed a lot of people. They've supported this community. What worries me is I might be an outlier here. I don't fish and I don't sell real estate. So I might be a little bit different in this valley. What concerns me is the attitude, not the attitude, is the concerns of that I've heard here tonight. In the respect that right up the road here at Moore Street, we've got one subdivision that's been approved for another 55 homes. We've got one right next to it that's going to make a presentation next month to put 90 homes in there. So we need the resource that this pit provides. We need the jobs in this country. We don't all live on fishing. We don't all live on real estate. We need to look out for each other and learn how to get along in this valley. But you can't just come in here and shut this down. We don't live in a bubble. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Good evening, M.Welles, I'm here tonight representing Valley Garden Ranch, Helena. We believe the EA performed by DNRC was insufficient and not compliant with NEPA. There are several points I want to make, all of which are detailed in a comment by this. First, by issuing the license renewal in February of 2022 and then evaluating NEPA after the fact, DNRC was in violation of NEPA's fundamental requirement. Environmental evaluation be performed in advance of an informed making of the decision by the agency. Indeed, the DNRC rule ARM 36.2.543 requires a hearing before the final decision. So I find it astounding that 50 years after the adoption of NEPA, DNRC is following this back in the process. And
ignoring basic principles of NEPA that you have to look before you leave. And because of that, in light of that, we, the DNRC, has a legal obligation to withdraw the license. Second, DNRC fails to take the requisite hard look on the environmental impacts from this proposal. The EA evaluates only 23 acres, not the entire development, even though what is approved was in effect an amendment to the entire permit. This is not a routine action which the pro forma EA is an appropriate level of review. It's a major expansion of a mining operation that's in close proximity to the Madison River system. As explained by our experts, the EA utterly lacks necessary baseline information regarding water usage, compounded by the fact that the operator is operating without either a permit or an exemption. Wells being used. And finally, the EA fails to adequately evaluate the water quality impacts, including impacts of the movement of the eastern berm, as has been highlighted by Mr. Donahue. In closing, DNRC violated NEPA as well by failing to evaluate reasonable range of alternatives. DNRC NEPA rules require an analysis of reasonable range of alternatives whenever alternatives are reasonably available and prudent to consider. Here, the only alternatives were no action and this action. The reasonable alternative here would be, for instance, one that includes an alternative that allows this out to competitive bid to retain eastern berm and short. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, cut you off. That's fine. I'm gonna ask, this cooler turned on and now it's getting even louder in here, so that, try and speak up as much.
N-A-N-I.
Perfect.
Okay, I live in Ennis, out of town here. I have some questions about the permit. And,
Try to hold the mic down.
I have questions about the permit. And I have a little bit of experience with mining, very close to where I live out Gravelly Range Road, where you worked on the hill and mined half the hill off going up to the fish hatchery. And that permit was not ended, instead it was supposed to be ended. And they then renewed it finally after pressure was on. So compliance has not been stellar. So in regards to this, one of my main concerns that nobody has addressed is the traffic. Ennis complained, and rightfully so, because they take the bulk of the big truck traffic to town. And I have no problem with truck traffic. But Ennis gets more than its fair share, sometimes truck per minute in town. So increasing the mine, the gravel pit, and expanding what it can do is only going to magnify that issue. And those trucks are not pulling off onto a frontage road or a side road. They're pulling out onto the highway, where recently they've lowered the speed limit to 65 miles, 70. But that's just a rec waiting to happen. So that's the first thing. Then on the permit itself, and specifically with the renewal conditions, how often does the DNRC inspect those mines? This mine or any of them? How often do you inspect that horrible land sore on I-90, on both sides of I-90? I mean, really?
So that would be one thing I'd like to know. How often have you inspected this pit for compliance to the permit? What about the archaeology on it?
We're out of time. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of other things that need to be addressed on the permit.
I would certainly urge you to have written comment.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brooks Scott. I'm from Livingston, and I'm here on behalf of the Elba Community Conservation Foundation to propose this. I just have a couple of things. I'll echo what other people have said, and say that I think that the agency should really take a look at the process for engaging the public. Consider that the community really should be a part of this more process. That just, secondly, I'd say that Wells may be one of the best operators on the planet. They're fantastic at everything they do. But as I can attest, here with Livingston, you can never be prepared to say this. Be careful, because like we experienced last year, that thing is going to float. And if you aren't careful, everything that's there could end up being with the burn really shouldn't be touched, it should stay. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to remind people to stay behind the lectern just to make sure we pick up the audio. So when you speak, you're in the perfect place right now, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. My name is
It wasn't
M.Welles.
directed at you.
My parents moved here in 1973. My dad ran the Jumping Horse Ranch outside of town here since then. M.Welles has been around as long as I can remember. They have nothing to gain by doing anything against the environment. They have been the best stewards of the land, just as any rancher and farmer in this valley has ever been. There's no reason for them to do anything that's against the permit. They're not going to create any pollution. All this talk about that dust. Cameron Flats, it gets pretty windy out there. Dust blows in everywhere. Any of the winter rain that comes down off the mountains in the spring, it begins to melt. They'll look at the lake in the spring, during runoff. That's nothing created by M.Welles or anybody else. The truck traffic you all are talking about, what do you think is going to happen when you close these pits out here? You close Clark's, you close M.Welles, where the truck's going to come from? Where's the material for your house? It's going to come from Bozeman. It's going to come from Butte. It's going to come from another place. You're all talking about this truck traffic that flows into town. That's nothing compared to what's going to happen when you start closing these pits. You got the big trucks coming over the hill, you got them coming up out of Cameron. That's going to be a problem. You all complain now. People aren't from here. We are. We grew up here. We don't want to see any more damage to the environment than is absolutely possible. M.Welles is not going to create that damage.
I spoke over you when you mentioned your name.
Mitch Allison.
Mitch Allison. Thank you.
Hearing. Jesse Ramos, 7770 Main Street, Bozeman, legal counsel representing the Channel Ranch. East of the M.Welles mine, the legislature intended the people of Montana to have a reasonable opportunity to participate in the operation of the agency before a decision for MCA 23101 and 23111, and the right to participate afforded by the Montana Constitution. And DNRC failed in that regard and granted a license renewal in February of 2022. The Channel Ranch is adamantly opposed to this, as explained in detail on November 25th. Letter in short, DNRC failed to follow the basic requirements of NEPA and granted a renewal license without preparing environmental assessment, then prepared an after-the-fact assessment that's sufficient and failed to address the 23-acre expansion and additional mining operations, including an asphalt plant among other equipment. And it's convenient to say now we're not planning to bring an asphalt plant, but if the asphalt plant and other equipment were included in the DEQ permit, the impact must be addressed before this permit is approved. The after-the-fact permit doesn't satisfy the public standards, doesn't demonstrate that DNRC was informed when it granted the permit renewal first, then prepared the EA, and it certainly doesn't balance preservation against utilization of natural resources and trust lands. The EA makes conclusory statements of negligible and temporary effects and otherwise justifies the action alternative while giving no meaningful consideration to other alternatives. And the renewal approval must be withdrawn, and DNRC must follow the NEPA process, prepare a new, thorough, and complete EA that addresses all of the components of the proposed mining operation and the entirety of the M.Welles mining area, including the extension. It must take a hard look at the potentially significant environmental impact of the community, air quality, surface water, including the Madison River and North Creek, groundwater, fish, birds, wildlife, and cultural resources, among others identified in my letter. And the operator needs to take steps to mitigate the environmental impact of this mine operation. Thank you.
I didn't get your last name, I'm sorry.
It's JECYNBREMER. California. Sure. I know I've been up once,
I'm Lauren Milford, and no, I am not born here. But my husband and I chose to live the last part of our lives, like a whole lot of people. And I just want to say, we don't have to be born here to love and cherish what we have in this valley. And I'm sorry, gentlemen, I don't know your name, but I just need to tell you that I feel very strongly about this subject.
Thank you. I appreciate your sentiment, and I appreciate your willingness but I'm gonna ask the people we are not in a rebuttal situation, so no problem. I didn't know how to jump in front of like the master team.
I'm right here.
Hello?
Perfect.
Okay. But anyway, I'm here. I wasn't born here, but
Who are you?
Where was I born?
Who are you?
Oh! Shirley Day, D-A-Y-L-E-Y. English, not Irish. Okay. I wasn't born here, but I've been called an old timer by old people who aren't here anymore. So I got a right to speak. On one hand, we got the economy stupid. I understand jobs. I work with the housekeeper on the Longhorn. I understand wealth, and I understand jobs. I understand that, all you people have jobs, but then on the other hand, is sense of place. And if you find that your job is impacting the beauty and the value that is, you can't put a price on the value of the beauty of this valley. So you have to weigh both. And just think about that. And I understand all the people back there who your jobs are here. I understand it. I understand jobs and family. But think about your kids and your grandkids. If you destroy what you came here for, the beauty of a sense of place, just think about it.
Do you have any further commenters in the room?
Good evening, the panel. Thank you for putting this together, taking your time to listen to what we have to say as a community. I applaud each of you that are here tonight. As a community, when it comes to Ennis and Allister, Harrison, and Madison County in general, is second to none. Would you introduce yourself? It's a secret. My name is John Malovich. I'm the Executive Director for the Madison River Foundation. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself as a homeowner and resident, on behalf of my family, but also to give some understanding and explanation to our involvement is to help inform the community, to help raise awareness of the community to the things that are going on. I look into this crowd and I see pillars of this community. I see people who employ others, people who are independent, contractors, pavers, concrete workers, and you're critical to the success of this community. Anglers, guides, retailers, restaurant owners, you're all critical to the success of this community. But there's also something common that brought us all here. Whether it was in 1883 or 1993, 2023, we came here for the same reason, the watershed, what it does, it produces and provides for this valley, for this region. We can be better. We can be better in the processes and in the execution of those processes to protect this watershed. As a state agency and with DEQ as an agency, holding each other accountable for those processes and executing them properly, giving this group of individuals not a chance to speak months down the road or after the approval of the permit, but in the process. Protecting the environment, protecting our heritage, protecting our legacy that we're going to pass on to our kids. We're finding a better way to collaborate, whether it be someone who their livelihood depends upon that pit, or somebody whose livelihood depends upon the pit not even. Finding a way to cooperate. But protecting the watershed is the reason why we're all here. Okay?
So if we, when we are finished with the comments of anyone in the room, we have commenters online, I believe, is that correct, Kathy?
Correct.
And I'm not sure how you want to do that, but
I'll ask them to raise their hand online.
Okay, so, is there anyone further in the room that would like to comment? Because it's going to end comment within the room and then go online. So, if you'd like to comment in the room, this is your last opportunity. Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy.
Again, if you want to comment and submit written comment rather than oral, you can do so over here.
I think I can.
she's come back with
Hello? Oh, hi, Ann.
Took virtual comments during a 30-day comment period, but you may email Martin virtual comment if you would like. Is his email over there? If not, I have it here and I can write it down for you.
Anyone who would like to email me a comment by 5 p.m. tomorrow, will certainly do so, and I will ensure that it will be.
We've got Ann Hedges online for virtual comment. Ann, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Ann Hedges. I'm with the Montana Environmental Information Center. And I just have to say, this is a really bizarre process. It's quite backwards. But let me start by saying the law changed in the last legislative session regarding how DEQ regulates open cut operations. Many of the prior protections that existed no longer exist. DEQ can change a reclamation date and post-mining land uses without public notice and comment. It can no longer limit hours of operation, offsite sedimentation, noise, light. The DNRC permit does not provide the protections that are needed to protect the community now that DEQ no longer has the authority. The DNRC permit was issued before the EA, meaning that many of the potential impacts are unidentified and not included in this permit. The time to mitigate impacts is before the permit is issued. The time to consider reasonably foreseeable impacts, such as the asphalt plant, is before the permit is issued. The asphalt plant is absolutely reasonably foreseeable because they already have a permit for it. The reference in the permit to DEQ reclamation requirements is also misplaced. Those laws changed and they no longer provide the same protections that they used to. This permit by DNRC needs to be changed in order to reflect the changes that were made in the open cut law that no longer provide the protections that people expect. When I look at the mitigation measures that are in the permit, I see many holes, many things that are no longer available or no longer are not going to be mitigated, and we can no longer rely on DEQ to do so. So I think DEQ's references should be stricken from the permit at the very least. Hours of operation, noise, light limits should be included. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Next, we'll move to Christopher Turman for a virtual comment. Christopher, you should be able to unmute yourself and provide your comment now.
My time will start now.
Yes.
I am Christopher Turman. I strongly oppose the renewal and expansion of the M.Welles Gravel Pit permit. Unfortunately, this has devolved into an issue of trust. Trust that our elected officials, state government employees, and state contractors will always act in the best interests of local communities and the environment. For me, the greatest breach of trust came with the actual public announcement of this hearing. Yes, this very hearing. The original email sent out included a link to a DNCR website page that argued that taxes would increase if the easily accessible gravel pit operations at the Welles Gravel Pit were not extended. The link has since been redirected to the quote, Understanding Trust Lands, unquote, page on the DNRC website. A state agency like DNRC is prohibited from advocating on behalf of one side of an issue or the other, especially issues under current consideration. The DNRC statement amounted to a threat. Approve the expansion permit or pay more taxes. This completely undermines the public's trust and questions even the value of making time tonight to make our voices in opposition heard. This action should be investigated by the Montana State Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Next, we've got Howard House. Howard, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Howard House. I made my first trip to the Madison Valley, particularly the Channels area in 1986, became a property owner in the mid-90s, have made multiple trips there every year since that time. Our family, which is now fully grown, grew up spending summers in the valley. We are fully invested. While we're not residents of the valley, we spend a lot of time there and are fully invested in it. Our daughter, at the age of 14, founded a 501c3 organization called Catch and Give, which raised over $70,000 for the benefit of the Ennis Community Children's School. We love and value this very unique and beautiful property. We intend to keep coming here, but we are very upset, if not appalled, to learn about the process that has unfolded. The fact that the DEQ basically not only approved the expansion of the gravel mine, but also allowed permits for the asphalt plant, a pug mill, and a concrete crushing operation. We strongly oppose the expansion as well as all these other activities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Next, we've got Michael Terry. Michael, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we've got you.
Yes, thank you to the board. Appreciate your consideration this evening. I've been visiting Ennis for over 30 years, 3 generations. My grandfather was a founder at the Channels Ranch. My father's a member, my siblings are. I'm a board member at the Channels Ranch as well. It's my favorite place in the world. I'm there multiple times a year. Anyways, I just want the board to understand the gravity and consequences related to any permitting and expansion of the Wells Gravel Pit. Any such actions are simply bad for the community. Anyone that's driven by, fished, or floated that stretch of the Upper Madison, the last stretch of the Upper Madison into Lake Ennis, or just spend any times outdoors or otherwise in the community knows this to be the fact. It goes way beyond any eye or smell test. It's, an uncomfortable process to date, as many have said, but we can't accept the pollution, visual, water, noise, or otherwise. That would be crippling to who we are and the fabric of the community. What's at stake is irreversible damage to an abundance of wildlife and what's already a fragile ecosystem. We're talking about putting the region's greatest natural resource directly in harm's way. Furthermore, any missteps in the short term will crush the thriving recreational economy. This is the same economy that has always supported the local residents. Please protect the state and the local community. Please be an advocate for its protection. The legacy of the valley is in your hands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we've got Elizabeth and Carlton McCambridge. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I would just like to state that we agree with everybody who has spoken post-meeting. We couldn't hear a lot of the meeting because of the sound was terrible, and the closed captioning was horrible too. But everything that the people have spoken since the Zoom people have gone on, we agree with. We live in Troutdale too, and we are impacted not only by the noise and the traffic and the dust, but I didn't hear anybody speak about property values. And I'm afraid that this will affect our property values tremendously. I'm most concerned, having been a water quality team member for the Madison Conservation District for 9 years. I'm very concerned about the Madison River and its tributaries, South Meadow Creek, North Meadow Creek. So the economy, the tourist industry, the fishing industry, all of this will be impacted by an asphalt plant. And even though Wells says they have no intention of having an asphalt plant or a cement plant, I understand that the permission has been granted, and like the first woman said, before the in a way that was not kosher. So I'd like to voice my opinion that this has been a bad situation, and we should not be granting carte blanche to Wells to do what they want. They have a responsibility to mitigate the pollution and reclaim the land, and so does the DNC and the EQ. That's it. Anything?
Great, thank you.
My wife.
Next, we've got Marshall Payne. Maybe. Marshall, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we've got you.
Thank you. Want to appreciate the attendees and the panel for putting this together. My name is Marshall Payne. I've been a Channels shareholder since its inception in late 1980s and joined the Valley. Is it fair to ask a question? Particularly the question is, I presume I'm looking at the environmental assessment, and the author is Michael Anderson, who works for the DNRC. Is that correct?
So, Mr. Payne, I'm just going to say you may certainly ask a question, and it will be, the DNRC will address it as a comment, but we cannot answer questions now. No.
Okay. Well, I've heard, obviously I'm opposed to the expansion of the pit. I think if the value of the pit is $600,000, which I think someone stated earlier a long time ago, I think the value of the environment would be 100-fold times that. So to balance the value of that $600,000 against the Madison Valley, and to suggest that going somewhere else to build another plant would cost higher taxes is an absurd comparison to begin with. Secondly, given the fact that there are procedural errors, which I think are now undeniable in the offering and the permitting of this, both the plant and the asphalt plant and all this other activities, I don't understand why it wouldn't be prudent to hire a third-party person now immediately to actually do a third-party review of the environmental assessment. It would seem that I would imagine that the proponents and the antagonists could get together and find someone that they could agree with that would give an unbiased review. I think that would protect both sides. If I were in the chair of people who've agreed to this permit, I would see no reason that I wouldn't do that. And so just.
Marshall, I apologize, but you've hit your 2-minute mark. If you have any further comments, you can submit those online via email.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we've got John Kennedy. John, you should be able to unmute now.
I think I just did.
You sure did, sir. Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you. I've been, like many who have spoken, been coming to Madison Valley and to Ennis for over 25 years, every year. One of my favorite drives in the valley is when we come over the pass and come in and see Eagle Lake on the left and drive into Ennis. I can't imagine how that would look with an asphalt plant between the road and Madison River. On top of that, I think all of the other charges and violations of permitting and the rule of law as stated by the representative from the state of Montana is quite clear. And the risk of pollution to the river, which is obviously the watershed for all of Ennis and ourselves along the river, is just not even close to the risk of curing, the asphalt plant and expanding the pit. So I strongly oppose it. And I have not seen any river guides or anyone who makes their living on the Madison itself, but hopefully they are speaking out as well at the threat of their own livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, and I apologize, I'll probably mess up your last name. We've got Stephen Aberg. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that.
It's Auberg. Can you hear me?
Aberg, yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Stephen Auberg. I'm a consulting archaeologist and historian from Billings. Been hired by Valley Garden Ranch to offer my professional opinion on historic and archaeological resources in the permit area. I have read 2 archaeological reports that were actually written by the DNRC archaeologist, and so I'm aware of the sites there, one of which was an alignment of cairns, which I think by circumstantial evidence, the DNRC decided were field clearing piles. My concern is that we know that there was an Aboriginal trail first mentioned by William Clark, Lewis and Clark expedition, that passed up the Madison Valley to the Reynolds Pass. And we also know that Aboriginal trails are often marked by cairns. So we really need to be sure if these cairns in the permit area are of historic age or in fact are agricultural, and they can be directly dated by a technique called optically stimulated luminescence dating. Secondly, the DNRC reports mention a 2-track trail that is essentially in the same position as the a GLO 1868 GLO map that shows the Virginia City to Gallatin Road, which is essentially the Bozeman Trail. It's also shown in an 1860 5 map. And Bozeman Trail is a pretty big deal, and to actually have a segment preserved is unusual. Montana only has one segment of the trail that's been nominated to the National Register, and we really need to be concerned if there is a preserved segment and it's going to be destroyed. So my suggestion would be to answer these questions with certainty before pit expansion is allowed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we've got Philip Chadwell.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Philip.
Great. I'm a resident of Big Sky in Madison County. And I've been fishing the Madison River and visiting Ennis for over 25 years. And I'm puzzled why jeopardizing one of the state's finest trout streams, the landscape and the viewscape within the Madison Valley, with the expansion of the gravel pit is even being considered. And I want to make sure that I bring this to the attention of the panel. And it hasn't been considered by others as I've been listening to this discussion, but Montana has a branding campaign that stresses the following 3 pillars. And this is straight off the government montana.gov's website. The Montana brand consists of 3 pillars. 1, more spectacular, unspoiled nature than anywhere else in the lower 48. 2, vibrant and charming small towns that serve as gateways to our natural wonders. 3, breathtaking experiences by day and relaxing hospitality at night. Why would a gravel pit be expanded right outside of Ennis, Montana? Ennis, Montana and the Madison River are one of the state's greatest tourist attractions. Let's keep it unspoiled. Surely there are more suitable locations that won't jeopardize our state's treasure in Ennis, Montana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Next, we've got Casey Cooper.
Hi, my name is Casey Cooper, and I was an intern with the Montana Conservation Corps this past summer. And I worked closely with the Madison River Foundation and the Madison Conservation District on water sampling sites along the Madison and its tributaries. And I know for certain that if there were to be an expansion to the gravel pit, that we would see a change in the quality of the water that would flow along the Madison. And it would affect not only the water itself, but also all of the ecology that depend on the water to survive. It would affect the trout population. It would affect everything that eats the trout, and the river itself would not be the same as it were pre-expansion. And I know that we all rely on this river in one form or another, whether for commerce or just enjoying and appreciating its beauty. And as mentioned, many people see the river and the surrounding area as an important part of their beauty of the Madison River. But even if there were no people around to see it, the environment itself would warrant protection. And I believe that the DNRC and the DEQ have not done due diligence in assessing the situation for appropriate threats, and that there should be a investigation into why the permit was approved in the first place. And there should, as stated, that there should not be an expansion of the gravel pit. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Next, we've got George Baldwin. George, we've got you. Thank you.
Hello. I also have been coming into the Madison River the last 35 years with my family, and cannot understand or fathom why would expand a gravel pit, particularly as it goes down the benches closer to the water, and will almost ensure the runoff will be into the river, thereby impacting all of the different ecosystems thereby. So I would like to voice my strong opposition to the expansion of the permit. Thank you.
Thank you, George. All right, it looks like we've got Brandon. Again, I apologize for the last name, Operchuk next. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Brandon.
I can, thank you. I'm a resident of the Virginia City Ranches as of the last few years, and I had been coming to play for the past 25 for the splendor and beauty of the river and the valley itself. I think if Wells does not intend, a couple of thoughts, if they do not intend to build an asphalt plant as a part of what they have said, they should turn in the permit. If the permit's been pulled, the assumption is made that the work will be done. So it needs to go away if that truly is their intent. And I think a lot of people would back down. They, honored that. The fishing industry in Ennis is worth well more than $600,000 if that's the value of the pit. And to expand it in contradiction of the fishing industry is ludicrous. It just doesn't make any sense financially. It doesn't make ecological sense. It doesn't take care of the environment in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a scare tactic to tell the people that they're going to have higher taxes if this doesn't go through. That is really a threat that has no grounding. And if it did, then it just shows a lack of creative thinking. And last, I strongly feel that the Montana Attorney General needs to investigate the potential nefarious doings of these permits being pulled. The actions in which they took place and the order in which they were done are not by the book. And someone somewhere is trying to benefit themselves over the members of the valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. We've got Kevin Kramer up next. Kevin, you should be able to unmute now.
Yep, done. My name's Kevin Kramer. I own property directly northeast of the mine. Our property's on Ennis Lake. My partner Elizabeth spoke earlier in the meeting, and she and I and our 2 kids live here full time. As she mentioned, I visited Madison Valley multiple times in the 1990s. Fortunately, I was able to move here permanently a few years ago. I'm in opposition to the expanded permit. In addition to my concerns around the process that was undertaken here that many people have discussed, I'm very concerned about the additional dust that will be created by the expansion of the mine area, as well as the extension of the permit duration and how long that will continue to be putting dust in the valley. As many of you know, Montana is a very windy state. The Madison Valley is no exception. I believe qualifies as one of the windier areas in our state. Our prevailing winds are from the south and southwest, as noted in the environmental assessment. Our property is directly in the wind path for dust and other contaminants, including what might be silica dust that has been shown to cause lung disease. During summer days when the thunderstorms come out of Virginia City and head our way, I looked to see where the storm's coming and when it's going to hit, and I see incredibly large dust plumes coming off of the current mine. Mind you, I am 2 miles away from the mine. With my naked eye, I can see a highly visible dust plume carrying dust and particulates our way that ends up reaching us. That dust plume borders on being extreme on windy days. I do not know the health impacts that could result from more than 20 more years of dust being carried to my property and inhaled by my family, but it causes me a high degree of concern that I did not see this given appropriate consideration in the environmental assessment. It was just characterized as nuisance dust. If there were an asphalt plant on site, that would be even more worrisome given the chemicals that are used to create asphalt. I also believe that 20-year extension of a permit feels like a very long expansion time that does not provide for what might happen with the water table and any other flooding or other environmental changes due to climate change that we're seeing. We've seen very extreme climate change impacts in other states that could easily come here as well.
All right, Kevin, I think that wraps up your comment. I just want to make sure you didn't get cut off.
No, I didn't.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much. Mike Terry is up next. Mike, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Mike.
Okay, great. Thanks for the opportunity. I've spent my last 35 years enjoying the Madison River and Ennis. My place is directly across from the Madison River, or really from the mine. I mean, I kind of look right at it. And I also would like to express my position to the pit gravel mine expansion and proposed asphalt plant on the banks of the Madison River. You know, 1 mile from Ennis, 1 mile, 1.5 miles from McAllister. As we know, it will cause air, noise, visual, water pollution. To me, the area is critical habitat to trout, the brown and rainbow, waterfowl, game, elk, deer, antelope. I think it was extremely fast-tracked, lots overlooked. I ask that you relook at the issue at hand, stop the expansion of the pit, and protect the resources that we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. We've got Mary Sedgwick now. Mary, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mary Sedgwick. I live here in Ennis, and I love the birds. I'm a member of the Sacagawea Audubon Society out of Bozeman. I want to mention that the Ennis Lake area and the Madison River along to the south of that is an important bird area. It's called IBA. It's a study area, a science-based conservation. IBA is a science-based conservation that can identify important birds that come through. And in the surveys show that Ennis Lake is a major stopover site for migrating common loons and waterfowl. In the fall, over 20,000 ducks stop to refuel there, including high numbers of other widgeons, red-headed American white pelicans, and the river and the lake all throughout the summer. And I just want to mention that I can't imagine that if a plant like that would be conducive to the environment, that it creates such an impact, an environmental impact. And the birds are having trouble with loss of habitat as it is. We certainly don't want to contribute to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next up, we've got Patrick McGee.
Good evening. My name is Patrick McGee Jr., and I'm a landowner in McAllister. I want to start with a note of gratitude. I'm grateful for the people who've spoken up tonight. I'm grateful to the hundreds of people who've sent in letters in opposition to this mine. I'm grateful for our state officials to listening to our voices and recognizing the need to reconsider their actions in regards to this mine. I hope that at the very least, you will choose to enforce the current permit that this mine is operating under. I'm hopeful that after you hear our voices and consider the facts at hand, that you will conclude that this mine and plant expansion and frankly, its continued operations is not in the best interest of the Madison Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. It looks like that was the last hand raised online through Zoom. Oh, I've got a couple more that have popped up now. Audrey, last name. Audrey, could you please unmute yourself? And then for the record, we will need your first and last name.
Oh, hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Great. My name is Audrey Lynn, and thank you to the DNRC for making this available by Zoom. It's the only way I could attend. I was born and raised in Montana. My husband was born and raised in Montana. We're third generation in McAllister. I'm a working mom. I work full time and we're raising young kids. And I want to give my kids and my grandkids the same magical childhood that I had growing up in Montana. I have three concerns I'd like to share. The first is the water permit. Everyone knows that that water is a precious resource. And with more families moving here and with our communities growing, I think some of us also know that water rights can be contentious as well. But we all use the water that's allotted to us and abide by the rules of our water permit. So it's very concerning to me that there's a commercial operation that's using water without a complete water permit. I don't see how any commercial operation could be allowed to operate without a stringent water permit, particularly one that sits on the bank of a water body. Next concern is the removal of the Eastern Geological Bench. As many have said, it's inevitably going to lead to increased water pollution flowing into the lake. This is the same lake that I swim in, that my kids swim in, that has critical tributaries and habitat for wildlife that we all love and live here to see. The other concerns are super valid: dust, visual pollution, noise pollution. I urge you to reassess the negative health impacts of the increased particulates in the air, water pollution, and lasting detriment to wildlife. The unspoilt beauty, clean air, abundant wildlife, it's why everyone lives here, and it's what I want my kids to have. Third is the economic effect to others. Many businesses rely on tourism, fishing guides, hotels, shops. I support everyone doing well in their business, and I know this mine is a business and employs people. But I hope that the DNRC will recognize that a balance needs to be taken into account, so that the many others whose livelihoods rely on a pristine Madison River will also be factored in. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. And for whatever reason, I've lost my attendees list. Okay, Kira Shelke, we've got you up next, and I apologize if I butchered that last name.
That's all right. This is Kirsa Shelke. Thank you for your time, consideration, and service. I'm Kirsa Shelke. I'm a staff attorney and in-stream flow specialist with Trout Unlimited's Montana Water and Habitat Program. And I'm also here on behalf of the local grassroots Madison Gallatin chapter, which represents 900 members active in conservation of the Madison River and its tributaries. I think our biggest contention here, candidly, is that review of the permit from a water resources perspective leaves more questions than it gives answers. There's no permitted water source, as we just heard about, and how is there a permitted wash plant without a permitted water source? Is it a well? If how M.Welles uses its water is unknown, then aren't the impacts to the water resource also unknown? What does asphalt production and the existence of a recycling plant mean? Do they heighten the risk of spills and contamination to groundwater and nearby river channels? I met with the local chapter's board to discuss the issue and whether they wanted to comment on behalf of the fishery. And unfortunately, because of the questions posed by the board, the local chapter was not even sure if or what its stance on the permit was. And that, in essence, is the bulk of our comment, particularly given the tight timelines, narrowed opportunities for the public to have notice and participate, and the division of responsibilities to different departments pursuant to our new open cut mining law. The environmental safeguards in MIPA are particularly important, specifically that the department take a hard look at environmental impact. TU believes the department's draft environmental assessment is inadequate, particularly given the timing issues mentioned by MEIC, and requests suspension of the renewed license pending an environmental assessment that truly examines the impact this expansion could have on such a treasured resource and its fishery. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we've got Hillary Sinclair.
Hi there, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Hillary New Sinclair, and 4 generations of my family have been part of the Ennis community for over 50 years. I'm very concerned about the impact of the expansion, and should it pass, obviously we're trying to identify now where all the numerous failures have been in having this expansion consideration be here. But I'd love to fast forward to where we might be in the future if it does pass. And I have a couple of questions. First of all, should it pass, what is the responsibility of Wells to monitor and remedy any adverse impacts to the environment, wildlife, plant life, air quality, or water quality? What is their responsibility besides just availing themselves of the permit? Second question. Should this pass and the proposed bench, the East Bench, be decimated by strip mining, does Wells have any obligation to fill the gaping hole and the massive scar that will be left on our beautiful valley? I'm very concerned about the irrevocable damage that this will impact for all of our community and what it will do to our precious piece of paradise. The benefit to the few, to the Wells plant, will definitely be to the detriment of the many that all enjoy living here, working here, vacationing here, and coming here. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. Next up, we've got William McGee. William, you should be able to unmute now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is William McGee. I'm a resident of Dallas, Texas, and a Madison County landowner. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in Earth and Environmental Sciences, and I'm on the board of directors of the Peregrine Fund, an organization focused on the conservation of raptor species worldwide. To me, it's a simple proposition. Do we want to remove the East Bench, create more fugitive dust, and increase toxic runoff into our already fragile Madison River ecosystem, or halt the expansion of the M.Welles Pit, helping to preserve the Madison Valley for generations to come? It's a simple decision, and I pray the powers that be make the right one on behalf of the raptors, fish, and broader ecosystem. May God bless you all and the Madison River ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, William. It looks like that was the last hand that was raised online, Martin.
All right, well, I want to thank everyone for their participation, and this hearing is now closed. And if you want to speak to Trevor or Zach, I think the opportunity is now. So thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Oh, and I will say, although the hearing's closed, all of these comments will be addressed in written form in the final EA. Is that correct? In the final EA. So you will see, you may not, it may not say, it will not say your name, but it will, and it will compile like kinds of comments in similar columns, talk about the frequency of those comments, and address all the comments. So thank you very much.